never seen.
Yo, what's up there, guys? Bill here, classic rock and metal review. Time for a bootleg review. This one for a nice one that came out from Roger Waters back in August, I think. It is called Radio KAOS on the Road. It's a double CD. Got two different shows, one on each disc. Both FM broadcasts from back in '87. We, as usual, will talk about this era, the record, Radio KAOS, what's going on around this era for Roger, the Radio KAOS album itself, what went into that. And then, of course, track by track to the double discs. In this case, came with some tasty little bonus items. Give you my history with Radio KAOS. Got into it, but not till a little later. But I kind of like the album. It's okay. I think it's his worst, but it's still worth exploring. And cool to get two different shows, or at least part of those shows from radio broadcasts, together in one package like this. So let's get into it. Guys, I'm still doing the water. Try to prevent those coughing fits. You can hear him trying to keep it down a little bit. Getting over yet another cold. But hey, I should be glad it ain't pneumonia or the flu. A cold sounds just fine right now. All right, so Roger Waters. As I was saying, this package here, we're on Speak-EZY Records, by the way. That's your bootleg label. Two different FM broadcasts, both incomplete from the shows that they came from, though, from the Radio KAOS Tour in 1987. Both excellent pro sound and quality, as you can imagine. A little different from each other, and we'll get into that as we go down each show. Curiously, only two CDs in here, but in the fat boy box that could hold four, for some reason. Silver pressed. Speak-EZY, not a label that I think I had anything from prior to this one. This was actually my final Disc Japan purchase. That thing popped up around mid-August 2023. And one of those where, even though I'm not a Radio KAOS junkie, just such a big Pink Floyd fan, Roger fan, of course I'm going to go for a 2 CD package with a couple of soundboards on it. And I actually used to have the first disc on cassette from back in the day. We'll get into that a little bit. I think I placed this order. Now, I already had placed an order a few weeks earlier, so that when this popped up, I didn't really want anything else. So I just ordered this one disc. And the reason I pounced on it was, not only got the double CD I just showed you, it also came with two triple CDR bonuses. Now, you do kind of pay for those bonuses, but they're only like $4 or $5, I think, each. First one called Radio KAOS on the Road, basically a needle drop from a vinyl triple album that was out, bootleg, from this tour. This one, I think, November 21st. So this would be the full complete show of one of the discs we're about to talk about. That was one of the bonuses. Then the other one being the very next night, the very, very last date of the tour. Also in Wembley, London's Wembley Stadium, and another triple CDR package. So I think the whole thing ran around $35. But nevertheless, it was the only thing I ordered. And luckily I did, because like I said, Disc Japan was down a few days later. Matter of fact, that site went down, and I had that order out there. But pretty sure I got a message saying it was on the way. So it did make it, obviously. All right, so as I mentioned, I think KAOS is his weakest album. But, weakest out of some other great work. So it's still a decent album, And I kind of just like this album a little bit. I can't even really explain why. It's only got a couple of really good songs. But I just kind of like it. Despite this sort of message, I don't really even understand all of it and even care about it, honestly, what I do understand. I just kind of dig the record. I got to playing it a lot in the mid to late 90s, I guess. So I didn't like it when it first came out. My buddy Rick had it. I could have did without it. I think he even had the video, right? The VHS, which I do have, that came with a bonus DVD with something else. And I transferred my VHS to. I still have that video on a compilation or what have you. Watched that, listened to it when it was brand new. It was okay. It's just that whole electronic sort of sound going on. It wasn't for me. How many times have I got to say that? And if you were in the mid 80s and you were going electronic, a lot of you guys probably feel exactly the same way, man. You were calling it as it was happening. You didn't need to do no hindsight 10 years later to see bullshit happening in front of your eyes, all right? So let's talk generally about Radio KAOS, the history of it. Roger's second solo album. His first after the breakup with Pink Floyd is official. Recorded in London at the end of 1986, not released though until June of 1987. Usual thematic, conceptual record lyrically centering around, in this case, around the back and forth between Billy, who's a disabled man living in Los Angeles, and DJ, in this case played by Jim Ladd, real life DJ, at the fictitious LA radio station KAOS. And I didn't realize this, but Jim Ladd just passed in 2023. Rest in peace, Jim Ladd. I have multiple interviews with him and Roger Waters. I think they started a relationship in around the Wall era. There's some great videos and interviews of Roger, especially around the pros and cons era with Jim Ladd. So sad to hear that he passed away. But continuing along the lines of the final cut, a lot of Radio KAOS has the politically fueled lyrical content and also just events that were happening around that time too, just like Final Cut was. It was sort of topical if you were watching any sort of major events happening in the UK and globally. So in my opinion, between the music, as I mentioned, decidedly more contemporary in this 86 era, in its use of synthesizers, keyboards, the guitar tones sounding a little whammy bar kind of sound going on with the guitars. Drums could be electronic in spots. So in my opinion, between that and sort of an hard to understand Billy character who has this Stephen Hawking-like computer-assisted voice, it's hard to even understand what the message even is, because it's hard to even follow the story, really, to me. That were my memories of listening to this record. And not back just in the 80s, but even in the mid-90s when I was playing it a bunch of times. I wasn't really sure what this album was even about, to be honest. So no wonder it only made number 50 in the US, number 25 in the UK. And in the US anyway, the tour was not selling well. Playing the half-empty arenas. Coming from Philadelphia, I remember distinctly hearing on the radio. Now, they would only do this for shows that were having problems selling tickets. But all of a sudden, the day or the day before the show, 93.3 WMMR would somehow sponsor tickets being sold to the show for $9.33. I can remember a handful of shows having that happen. And this was one of them. Now, I didn't go. And I don't know. It's just stupidity. I should have at least tried to go to this. In all fairness, though, EMI and Columbia Records insisted on this album being vinyl album, single vinyl album length, where Roger had written, I think, 16 songs for this, envisioning it fitting on the new format compact disc, being at least 14 to 16 songs. So this no doubt diluted or at least mucked up part of the message, as some of the songs that got dropped help sort of get you to the end of the story, in the proper sense anyway. So hence the many 12-inch singles. There's, I think, 3 of them out there, singles and 12-inch singles that have bonus tracks and various things. This one's just one that I happen to have, Tide is Turning. The song itself is just like what's on the album, but you do get a live version of Money, I believe. And then Get Back to Radio, that's a demo recorded for the album that didn't make it onto the album. Would have been on the longer version. And just quickly got to mention, I already have, but if you don't watch the channel too much, got this Project KAOS a couple years ago. This bootleg assembles the regular album, some items that are on some songs and material, because I should say material, not songs, because some of these things are just talk, Jim Ladd, Billy. There's a news report that's on the video that makes it on here. This Project KAOS collects a whole lot of goodies. The B-sides, it uses, and I didn't realize this either until just recently, that the album version of Radio KAOS had some longer versions than the compact disc did, and vice versa. So Project KAOS utilizing the longest of all these possibilities, the 12-inch B-sides, stuff from the video that's not on the album, and I think Molly's song is something that he only did live that would have been on the longest version that he wanted to make. So here you go. Project KAOS is out there on the bootleg market if you want a full-on what Roger had intended, theoretically, for Radio KAOS. So let's talk the Radio KAOS tour. It begins August 14th, 1987, rolls through the United States and Canada up until November. Now there's only 2 shows outside of North America, and those 2 shows are those 2 bonus shows that I saw you. These are both of the Wembley Arena London shows. November 21st, audience recording 3 CDs, and then November 22nd, the final show of the tour. Hence the name on this guy, Radio KAOS on the Road, Final. So, kind of a big deal that these shows are happening in London. And luckily, Disc 2 is part of the London November 21st show. So, there you go. That's the whole tour right there. 3 or 4 months in America, 2 shows in London. And that's the end of the tour. So Disc 1, let's get started on this Radio KAOS on the Road Speak-EZY double silver press CDs. We're in the KAOS Day, Quebec City, Canada. It's November 7th, 1987, so we're getting towards the end of the tour. It's a full 80-minute disc, and it's from a Westwood One broadcast. Guys, I had this whole thing just as it is here back in the day. I had a friend who was really into Floyd collecting, and he had some contacts. He got some great quality stuff. So the version I had back in the day, really good. If anything, though, it did sound a little thin and lacked bottom end, but excellent sound overall. Let's start talking about the show. First, you have an intro, and that's by Jim Ladd. He basically says hello in French, and then gives you some context with Radio KAOS in English. And then that blasts us off into the first song, Radio Waves. This sounds great. I always love this song. I know it's an unabashed pop song, and you know what? It just works. It doesn't, not what you expect from Roger Waters, but it works for me. I remember the video in heavy rotation on MTV. Man, it seemed like I saw that thing 6 times a day at some points in the summer that year. And you know what? I watched it every time. I just liked it. And there's not much to the video, but I like the song, I guess, enough to keep watching it no matter what. The one thing about my copy back in the day is that, like I said, it was a little thin. So there's improved bass here. Sound is really just perfect, you know? All instruments heard perfectly, and there's a bunch of instruments on stage, but you hear them all great. This is official live album quality sound. It really doesn't get much better. Not exactly oodles of live feel to this one. Crowd, a little hard to hear during the main parts of the songs. Really only hear them mostly, for the most part, the beginnings and endings. But Radio Waves is a great opener. Next up, a bunch of Pink Floyd songs. Now, this show has 19 songs. There's the intro by Jim Ladd, which doesn't count. And there's a Roger Q&A right in the middle. It sounds like it was not recorded at the show, recorded in a studio somewhere. So 19 songs out of these 21 titles. But there were actually, I think, 30 songs played at the show. But so 2/3 of it is here. But we get into, after Radio Waves, half dozen Floyd songs. Now, if you're not used to hearing Roger's versions, he likes the saxophone to just interject wherever it kind of wants to. Backing vocals, kind of like right behind it. Backing vocals are all over the place, unlike the original records. Take a little getting used to, but not too much. I kind of enjoy these takes of these songs. if only because he's trying to do something different with them. At the very least, I appreciate the effort. His former band certainly just tried to play everything exactly like the records. Now, if that's your thing, that's fine. When I listen back to these Floyd 87, 88 bootlegs, they sound good. But I'm glad that since Floyd was just trying to repeat the records, Roger was putting a different spin on things. And what's still intact here, though, I would say, the songs all attached to each other as one continuous flow. Something Roger always did and always will do, basically. So that's kind of cool. The songs kind of flow right into each other from one to the other. Welcome to the Machine's pretty solid. That's a good one. Money is actually really good here. The guitar solo on here is great, I got to tell you. Playing can be a little fast at times, faster than Dave could ever play in his life. But in spots, it can work. I don't love it every time it happens, but it works here in Money. Money's actually really good. I'm not even a big fan of Money. Sounds really good. Pig's 3 Different Ones was on its way to being really good. They stopped the song after just 2 verses. So you kind of get shortchanged on that front. Only 3 songs from Radio KAOS on this out of these 19 songs here, though. So they edited out a lot of the Radio KAOS material from this Westwood One broadcast. Now, my favorites from this show, the Welcome to the Machine, right after Radio Waves, is really solid. I like that version a lot. Money, not a song I really like much. There's a really good version here, and screaming guitar solo at the end is really good. Now, this dude can play a lot faster than Dave could ever play, and I'm not usually a fan of that, but it kind of works here. Really good version of Money. Powers That Be from Radio KAOS. Great song. This one, I think it's the best song on Radio KAOS. The strong version here, it's got more energy than the record does. So that's awesome. You get Molly's song, which is a non-album, only live version of that. That's here, oddly enough. So Radio Waves, Powers That Be, and Molly's song. The Roger Q&A in the middle, like I said, it's not part of the concert. It sounds like it was recorded in a studio. Pretty cool info about, someone asked a question about who were they trying to kill in one of these days, going to cut you into little pieces. So Roger has a good, cool recollection of that. One that sounds like caught him off guard. So that's really kind of cool. A story I had never heard until here. Songs that are kind of lacking in here, In the Flesh, it's kind of sped up. The blazing solos are a little out of control for me on this one. Pigs was on its way to being really good, but ends promptly after the second verse. So that's kind of a letdown. Not that it sounded awesome, but it was a pretty good version. It's decent, but just chopped in thirds or whatever. Brain Damage at the very end. I think it's the next to last song, or last song. This kind of boppy, happy kind of bass line gives it like a circus-like feel. And I don't know if Roger's going for irony there or what have you, but it just doesn't work at all. Didn't like that much. However, overall, a lot of these songs sound good, if not fantastic. I gave you the best and the worst, but there's plenty of songs in the middle here that sound just fine. It's a good overall show. Good to finally have it on a silver pressed copy like this. And also some other songs that were pretty faithful to old style Floyd were The Brick in the Wall, Part 1, Into Happiest Days, Into Brick, Part 2, Mothers, pretty Floyd standard style here. So the excellent sound on a very good show overall. Loving it. So on to disc 2. Now we're at London's Wembley Arena, next to last date of the show, November 21st of 87. Now you only get about a third of the show here. That's the thing. How many songs total? 12. There are some bonus tracks, but they're from the audience recording. So we'll just talk about the dozen broadcast tracks here, soundboard stuff. What's really cool about this disc is you get the entire Radio KAOS within those dozen songs. So 8 songs here are Radio KAOS. So I'm sure that there was probably some some sort of agreement between Roger and the broadcaster that I'll let you broadcast an hour of the show, but you have to focus on the Radio KAOS stuff. I mean, one can only guess that he would have to force that to happen, you know. Also, another highlight of this has a punchier sound. I want to say the levels are peaking a little more. Now, they're not distorted, not even a little bit, but definitely a little higher boost kind of thing going on with the sound quality. But it gives you a better live feel too. The crowd is heard better. And just knowing, you know, I mean, this album did better in the UK. So the crowd sounds really pumped, and you can imagine when there's only going to be 2 concerts for the entire tour, that the crowd's going to be excited, and it feels that way. So better live feel, better sound quality, sort of boosted, like I said, punchier overall sound to the songs. Favorites from this one, Jim Ladd's intro, which goes right into Radio Waves. Just a great song, I like it. Welcome to the Machine, again, is really good here. Safe to say I like Roger's version. Nobody Home from The Wall. Very faithful to the Floydian style from 80-81 tour. Sounds excellent. Who Needs Information is very good. Me or Him and Who Needs Information. They're excellent versions of okay songs. Let's put it that way. The songs aren't great. They're good. But these versions of them are great. So good stuff there. And also 5:06 a.m. Every Stranger's Eyes. That's a good one from the second show. Final Word, it's an excellent double CD of a brief and somewhat overlooked chapter Roger Waters, you know, Radio KAOS. Now, Roger himself, in hindsight, looks back very disfavorably on the Radio KAOS album. Certainly wasn't the draw that the Pros and Cons tour was. I mean, first of all, you had Eric Clapton on it. Second of all, there was no other competitor, right? Floyd had not sort of reconvened. In fact, the band was technically still together. So it also wasn't the draw that the 99 In the Flesh tour was going to be 12 years later as sort of a comeback, you know. So great record of a forgotten era is how I look at it. And it's an interesting one, you know, if not fantastic, one that deserves a little bit of attention. Roger's a master, and, you know, I'm still kind of learning about this record, actually. And now I also have some bonus CDs to try to hear the whole show one of these days, like I was telling you earlier. Radio KAOS On the Road, Needle Drop from an 80s triple vinyl album. 3 CDRs on that one. And I'm not sure if this is new to market or not. This one's called Radio KAOS On the Road Final. Audience tape from the next night, the last night of the tour. November 22nd. So this one has the better sound of the two. They're both listenable, not great. They feel like they're from about a third or a halfway back in the arena. So not close, not far, somewhere in the middle. The 22nd show, the final show, to me has a better sound. It just feels warmer. The difference feels like better equipment was used. Although, I guess with the needle drop, you're just relegated to whatever that initial sound was. So enhancements perhaps made to this recording. Possibly the same recording. They do sound about the same distance from the stage. One of these days, I'll chuck one of those on, dissect that. Take a look at the artwork. I've already showed you the cover all this time, multiple times now. If you flip this CD open, we're dealing with these fat boys like this. So opens from the, whatever you want to call that. I got disc one over there on that one. You get the band line up in there. Kind of interesting. Disc behind that. Let's flip to the back half of this. Now, I chose to put this disc on the very back there because prongs there seem to be safely holding this thing, and trying to stick them in the other side seems like it's going to maybe break the disc. So you know how it goes. There's your CD number 2. Behind CD number 2, you get some cool stage shots there. Discs both look the same, as you can see. Now the bonus discs, simple plain cover. I'm going to assume it just mimics that classic 80s bootleg vinyl. On the inside of that, just your songs, you know, broken down by CD or CDR. And that's pretty much it. That's what you get with these bonus discs a lot of times. And Radio KAOS On the Road vinyl. There's your front cover. And when you flip on the inside of that, very similar looking John with just your song titles. Guys, that'll do it for now, man. There's your bootleg review for Roger Waters' Radio KAOS On the Road. Next up, I'm going to have a Black Sabbath update. All right. Name all the bootlegs you need from Sabbath and Ozzy. All the good quality soundboard stuff. Really, it's all of it, you know. I'm down with all of it. And that's for Chris Allo, like I said. And also, there's a bunch of new bootlegs that have come out from Sabbath, but they're all pretty much rehashes. Go over those. Little final book review, Geezer's book. Little talk about the first concert I was ever at, 40th anniversary just passed. Ozzy. Whatever else I can dig up. Guys, drink your water, wash your hands. Maybe you'll have better luck than me. Even though I do all that shit, I still get sick. Cheers.